Hey everyone, welcome back to. Today, we've got something special lined up for all you coin collectors and history buffs. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of US coins, specifically focusing on the 1983 half-quarter dollar. I know, you're probably thinking, wait, what? The half-quarter dollar? Well, yes folks, it's a coin that sometimes slips under the radar, but it has a unique history and value worth exploring. So, if you're interested in learning more about its circulated value, rarity, and the intriguing details of this coin, you're in the right place. First, let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The 1983 half-quarter dollar is not your everyday coin, and that's exactly why we're talking about it today. While most of you are probably familiar with the regular US quarter dollar, there was a special issue of the 1983 half-quarter dollar that caught the attention of numismatists and collectors. Now, when we talk about coins like these, we always have to consider the basics. What does it look like? The 1983 half-quarter dollar was issued as part of a very limited minting, and its design is similar to the traditional quarter, but with some very unique features that give it character. On the obverse side, we have the classic portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States, facing left. This is a hallmark of the quarter coin series, as his image has been featured on US quarters for over a century. But what's really interesting is the reverse side. It depicts an eagle in flight with the iconic inscriptions, United States of America, and A Pluribus Unum. But here's where things get a little bit different. The 1983 half-quarter dollar was initially a test coin, an experimental issue from the US Mint. It was never intended to circulate widely. In fact, these coins were primarily produced for collectors and were meant to test out new designs and production processes. That means this coin wasn't released in the same quantities as your average quarter. So, what does that mean for its value? The 1983 half-quarter dollar's circulated value isn't something you see every day. Because it was minted in such limited numbers, it's become somewhat of a rare find. The average value of a well-circulated 1983 half-quarter dollar is around $5 to $10 in typical conditions. This makes it a fun coin to add to any collection, especially for those who enjoy hunting for unique, less common coins. However, if you're lucky enough to come across one in uncirculated condition or with certain errors, the value can skyrocket. Coins in pristine, uncirculated condition can fetch anywhere between $50 to $100 or more, depending on the demand and the state of preservation. Some rare variants, such as those with minting errors or misprints, have been known to sell for even higher prices at auctions. So, if you happen to stumble across one of these coins in your pocket change, don't be too quick to dismiss it. It could be worth much more than its face value. Now, if you're a serious collector and you want to keep track of your collection, I'd recommend investing in a good coin book or a professional-grade magnifying tool. This way, you can examine coins closely for any potential errors, such as double strikes, die cracks, or off-center prints, which could greatly increase a coin's value. Let's take a moment to talk about the rarity of the 1983 half-quarter dollar. Since it wasn't produced in large quantities for circulation, it's considered a rare find today. If you happen to find one in a roll of quarters or at a coin shop, it's definitely worth adding to your collection. Remember, the rarity of these coins is a big factor in determining their value. The more rare the coin, the higher the value. But here's a quick reminder. If you come across a coin that looks like the 1983 half-quarter dollar, make sure to do a bit of research. It's always a good idea to check its authenticity, as there are a lot of replicas and counterfeits out there. You don't want to waste money on a fake, so be sure to double-check with a trusted numismatic expert if you're unsure. Coin dealers and professional graders can help you determine if your coin is authentic, and they can give you a more accurate estimate of its value based on its condition and any special characteristics it might have. So, what's the bottom line when it comes to the 1983 half-quarter dollar? If you find one in good condition, it's definitely a nice addition to your collection, and it has a value beyond its face value. While it's not worth hundreds or thousands of dollars like some rare coins, it is still an intriguing piece of history that can hold a special place in your numismatic journey. It seems like you're interested in the history of the 1983 half-quarter dollar. It's possible that there was a misunderstanding or miscommunication regarding the coin. What might have caused this confusion is the existence of the 1983 US quarter dollar, which was minted in 1983 as part of the regular circulation of quarters. The quarter dollar, valued at 25 cents, has been a part of US coinage since 1796. Over the years, its design has evolved, with changes reflecting both artistic shifts and national events. The 1983 quarter features the familiar image of George Washington on the obverse, designed by John Flanagan. Washington's portrait has appeared on U.S. quarters since 1932, marking his importance as the first president of the United States. On the reverse side, the coin continues to display the familiar eagle design introduced in the 1930s. However, starting in 1999, the reverse side began to change as part of the 50-state quarters program, which commemorated each U.S. state with its own design. In 1983, the U.S. Mint produced a substantial number of quarters, mainly at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. However, unlike many other years, there wasn't any significant shift in design or special issue for the quarter in 1983. It was simply a standard year for the quarter's continued use in U.S. commerce. In terms of value, a typical 1983 quarter in average circulated condition is worth face value 25 cents. However, if it's in uncirculated condition or has some special minting errors, like die cracks, double strikes, etc., its value can increase. For instance, some collectors may pay more for a 1983 quarter that has unusual characteristics, but these instances are rare. If you were thinking of a half-quarter dollar or a unique coin that doesn't fit the usual U.S. denomination structure, this could be a mistaken reference. In U.S. coinage, there are quarters, 25 cents, and half dollars, 50 cents, but no official half-quarter denomination. However, if you meant to refer to a different coin, such as a 1983 half dollar, 50 cents, then that's a different story, and I'd be happy to help you with that as well. The iconic USA 1965 half-quarter dollar coin. Now, if you're a coin collector, this one is definitely something you'll want to pay attention to. But for those of you who are just curious about the value of this coin, stick around as we break it all down, from its history to its current circulated value. The 1965 half-quarter dollar is an interesting piece in the history of American coinage. But before we talk about its value, let's take a quick look at its background and what makes this coin so unique. In 1965, the United States was going through some pretty significant changes. The country was in the midst of the Vietnam War, and there were major social shifts happening, including the civil rights movement and changes in the economy. This year also marked a crucial point in U.S. coinage history because it was the year the U.S. Mint stopped producing 90% silver coins. That's right. The 1965 half-quarter dollar is the first one that was struck with a reduced silver content, now made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. That's a big difference from the earlier coins that were solid silver. But why the change? It was largely due to a silver shortage caused by rising silver prices. The mint had to adjust to ensure there was enough metal to keep producing coins. This shift in composition made the 1965 half-quarter dollar an important milestone in American coinage. Now that we have the historical context, let's talk about the 1965 half-quarter dollarist design. The coin features the classic John F. Kennedy portrait on the obverse, designed by Gilroy Roberts, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint at the time. The design was a tribute to President Kennedy, who had been tragically assassinated in 1963. On the reverse, you've got a flying eagle in full flight with the words United States of America and E Pluribus Unum. Symbolizing the strength and freedom of the nation, let's talk a little bit about the circulated value of this coin today. Because the 1965 half-quarter dollar is no longer in production, it has become a collector's item, though it may not be as rare as some of the other older coins out there. For circulated coins, the value will depend on a few factors. The better the condition of the coin, the higher its value. If you find a 1965 half-quarter dollar that's in mint condition, graded MS65 or higher, you could be looking at a value of around $10-$20 or more. For coins that have been in circulation for a long time, you're generally looking at a value of about $2 to $4. This is because they've been subject to wear and tear over the years, which lowers their market value. However, if the coin is in exceptionally good circulated condition, it might fetch a little more. If you're someone who's into coin collecting, then you'll want to look for the following when it comes to the 1965 half-quarter dollar. Check if the coin has a mint mark. The 1965 half-quarter dollar was minted in Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D mint mark, and San Francisco, S mint mark. The San Francisco minted coins were made for proof sets, which means they are likely in much better condition than those released into circulation. While the coin isn't as rare as some, there are always exceptions in the world of coin collecting. For instance, if the coin has any unusual errors or misprints, it could significantly increase its value. So, what's the bottom line? The 1965 half-quarter dollar coin holds an interesting place in U.S. coin history, especially due to the change in metal composition. While it may not be worth a ton in its circulated state, it remains a popular coin for collectors because of its historic significance, JFK's portrait, and the shift in U.S. coinage during that era. If you've got one of these coins hanging around, don't toss it out. Take the time to inspect its condition, check for mint marks, and you could have yourself a nice addition to your collection. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you learned something new or found this information useful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more coin-related content. Also, let me know in the comments. Do you have any 1965 half-quarter dollar coins in your collection? Have you ever spotted any cool errors? I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep on collecting.